Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan and I'm a previous operations manager for RTOs here in Australia, and I now run my own consultancy to help RTOs and other organisations work more efficiently and effectively. If you work in the vet sector, you will know that compliance never sleeps. So today, I want to walk you through the overarching steps to running an internal audit for RTO compliance in 2025. It's going to be in a way that is not stressful. It's also not just box ticking, and hopefully the tips that I go through with you will help your team to improve. This video is perfect if you are a compliance manager or an operations manager, you might be a training coordinator, but really it's for anyone who wants to make sure that your RTO stays audit ready all year round. So grab a coffee, let's get into it. Contrary to perhaps popular belief, an internal audit isn't just about ticking off the clauses in the standards for RTOs. It really is your chance to check how your systems actually work in practice. So in 2025, ASQA has made it really clear they're looking for evidence of self-assurance, not just that compliance paperwork anymore. So what does this mean? It means that they want to see that your RTO knows its risks, reviews its practices, and also improves based on the evidence. So your internal audit should show what you've checked, what you found, and also what you did about it. That is what ASQA calls the self-assurance mindset, and that's really what separates the strong RTOs from the reactive ones. Okay, so now we're getting into the planning phase. Before you start diving into files, you just need to make sure that you are planning the audit properly. So think of it like planning a course delivery. You need the right scope, you need the right people, and also the right tools. So here's my process that I follow. Firstly, decide the audit focus. So don't try to cover everything at once. Pick an area. For example, you could do your trainer and assessor files, you could do an assessment validation, you could do your marketing and enrollment, you could also look at your student support and progress monitoring, but choose one. Then throughout the year, you can then rotate your focus areas, making sure that you cover off on all of the RTO obligations under ASQA. Number 2, check your risk register. So which areas have caused issues before? Maybe the assessment mapping has been inconsistent, or maybe the third-party agreements need a bit of tightening. You need to make sure that you are prioritising those high-risk areas. Number 3, set a timeline and create your team. So you need to schedule it like any other operational task. You then need to assign roles. So you're going to have one person to lead, you're going to have one person to review the evidence, and also another person to verify the findings. Always include at least one person who isn't directly responsible for that area. It really does help to keep things objective. Number 4, use a good audit tool. You can use ASQA's self-assessment templates, or you can build your own in Excel or Power BI. The important part is that each standard or clause links to where your evidence lives. Your policies, your student records, your LMS screenshots, whatever it might be that you're using. I have in the past created my own, which allowed everyone to see very clearly what was happening regarding our compliance, and it made sense for our RTO. Evidence can be somewhere that a lot of RTOs do trip up. I think we either collect too much or not enough evidence, or maybe not the right kind of evidence. So here is my golden rule. I think that evidence must show compliance in practice, not just on paper. So if we take quality area 1, which is training and assessment, and then we look at standard 1.5, we'll use that as an example. Don't just then attach your assessment validation policy and call it done. What we need to show is we need to show the actual validation plan and the schedule for the year. We also need to show the completed validation records who participated as well as their credentials. We also need to be able to provide, were there any improvements that were identified, and also the proof that the changes from those improvements that were needed were actually implemented. If we look at the trainer and assessor files, it's really very similar. So you need to check that, for instance, all qualifications are current, your vocational competencies match the units that are being delivered, the trainer and assessor PD logs are up to date, and also that the industry engagement has been recorded and applied. So for me, a good internal audit doesn't just confirm the compliance, it also highlights where the evidence trail is weak or missing. So unfortunately, here is the part that some people do skip, talking to the actual humans who are behind the documents and the processes. So when I run an internal audit, I do always schedule short conversations with the staff. So it might be the trainers, the admin staff, the student support officers, the compliance staff. And through those conversations, I will ask things like, for trainers and assessors, it might be, how do you check that each student's work meets the standard before you mark it? Or what do you do if a student is struggling with an assessment? For admin staff, it might be, how do you make sure student records are accurate and up to date? Or, what steps do you take when enrolments or results need checking? For your compliance or your support staff, it might be questions like, how do you make sure our policies are followed day to day? Or what do you do if you notice something that doesn't match the current rules or guidelines? Those conversations will tell you a lot more than your paperwork ever could. If someone can't explain a process clearly, it usually means that your system isn't as embedded as you thought. And that is really valuable feedback. The next step in our internal audit is to document what you find, and it does need to be honest and it does need to be clear. So you're going to split your findings into the three categories. You've got your compliant, which is where everything aligns, which is great. You're partially compliant, there might be some gaps or some inconsistencies. And then you're non-compliant, which is where you've got missing evidence or incorrect practice. Then for each finding, you're going to record the clause or the requirement, what evidence was reviewed, what the issue was, if there was an issue, and the corrective action that's required. For that corrective action, you're going to add a due date and an owner. It's really important to make sure that you're avoiding vague notes like needs review or improved process. You need to be really clear. You need to write something that is specific and it's doable. So, for example, if we go back to our trainers and assessors, you might have a note that says revise assessment instructions for BSB WH411 to include workplace example scenarios. This is due on the 10th of November and it's assigned to trainer Jane Smith. For your admin staff, you might have one that says check all student enrolment forms from June onwards for missing signatures and upload the corrections to the student management system. This is due on the 12th of November and it's assigned to Admin Officer Liam Brown. For your compliance staff, it might be update RTO policies to reflect 2025 regulatory changes for learner support. This is due on the 15th of November and it's assigned to Compliance Coordinator Sarah Lee. Once you've written it, add it straight to your continuous improvement register. That way it's going to be tracked and it's going to be followed up. And that there is your proof that you don't just find issues, you fix them. Once your actions are completed, you need to make sure that you are now closing the loop. So you're going to check the corrective action was actually effective, not that it was done. So for example, if you found missing trainer PD logs and you ask the staff to update them, make sure you go back later on and confirm that they are now reviewed quarterly. If you updated assessment tools, you need to check that the new versions are in use and that the trainers have been briefed. This step turns your audit from a one-off activity into an ongoing improvement cycle, which is exactly what ASQA wants to see in 2025. So this is a part of the internal audit process that I think is really important. Don't just keep your audit report buried in SharePoint. It's not just for the executive leaders to have on file. It really is that you need to be sharing the key outcomes with both your leadership team and also the staff. To do this, you could run a short audit debrief meeting. It needs to be like 30 minutes tops. It really doesn't need to be in depth, but you need to make sure that you're going to put together an outline of what you will cover in that meeting, and then you can create your meeting notes accordingly. So, for instance, what did we do well? What needs attention? And also what is changing as a result. This way, it keeps everyone engaged and reinforces that compliance is a shared responsibility. It's not just the compliance team's job. I think when everyone understands compliance, it becomes part of everyday work. For some people, this might be their aha moment, and for some people, it gives them their why. Let's be real. I've seen a few internal audits that have gone off track. Here are some examples of the big ones. So, relying on old audit reports without actually checking the evidence. Don't just copy last year's report or perhaps a previous ASQA audit that's been done and just update the date. You've got to make sure that the evidence is still current, it's valid, and that it is accurate. Another one is auditing too close to ASQA's visit. So if you leave it until the last minute, there is absolutely no time to fix the issues. Your internal audits should be a regular embedded part of your processes throughout the year. Focusing only on the documents and not the practice. You've really got to be checking how things are actually happening day to day, not just what's written on paper. The last one is treating the audit as a blame exercise. Internal audits are really about improvement, not about fault finding. The best internal audits for me feel like professional reflection. It's not punishment. Here's a few quick tools to make life easier. The ASQA's self-assurance resources. These are updated regularly, so make sure you are going onto the ASQA website to check out what's new. Power BI dashboards, you can really use these to visualize your compliance trends. Teams or SharePoint forms for real-time evidence collection. This is great. And my personal favorite is setting calendar reminders for each audit cycle so that your compliance doesn't sneak up on you. Remember, internal audits are most effective when they're embedded, not scheduled reactively. I know that it might seem overwhelming if you're starting this from scratch, but I promise you, in the long run, it actually makes things easier, quicker, and simpler for everyone involved. Congratulations, you've made it. So that's how to conduct an internal audit that actually strengthens your RTO. It doesn't just tick those boxes. So let's recap the key points. So plan your audit around risk, collect real evidence of practice, talk to your team, record and act on your findings, and then close the loop with the continuous improvement. If you can show the process clearly, you're not just compliant, you are self-assured. Thank you so much for your time today. If this was really helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your compliance team, and subscribe for more practical RTO operations insights. And if there's a specific area that you would like me to cover, like trader file management or student management processes, pop it in the comments below. I do also work with RTOs across Australia through my consultancy, helping teams strengthen their systems and simplify their operations. So if your RTO could use some practical support or a fresh set of eyes, you can email me on contact@fairyland.com, and the other links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, compliance isn't scary when it is part of your everyday rhythm. See you in the next video.